Hey everyone. Today I'm going to talk about the greatest fairy tale never told. That's right. I'm talking about Shrek. Now, some of you may know this movie, others might not, but hopefully after this you'll never forget it. Now, this is a movie that came out over 20 years ago. And yeah, saying that out loud makes me sound old. But it was one of the most successful DreamWorks movies. Now, take everything you know about fairy tales and make it into something you'd never expect. And that is what this movie is. This movie caused waves in terms of what an animated movie can do. Yes, it's rated PG, but that doesn't stop the writers from putting in lines and references to many adult related jokes.
Like that's ever gonna happen. What a load
This movie has become so popular in pop culture that it has one of the most memorable and iconic openings to a movie ever. This movie uses All Star by Smash Mouth, which sounds like the most whack shit you've ever heard of, but trust me, it just fucking works. And while I think this is a movie that can appeal to anyone of any age, the other question still remains. Is it a good movie? And without question, it absolutely is. And okay, you'll have to give it a little bit of a pass for the animation. I mean, it's only like a couple years after some of the early Toy Story movies came out, so it hasn't really excelled in that department yet. But for what they had and what they worked with, I think they did a pretty good job. Now, if a kid watched this, some lines aren't going to make the most sense. But if they were to watch it years later, trust me, they'd finally get the brilliance of this film. But beyond visuals, this movie has a good story with amazing voice actors that help create fantastic characters who are all unique in their own way. The movie only focuses on four of them, but they sprinkle in some fun classic fairy tale characters that many will recognize. The main story is that Shrek is seen as an ugly and feared ogre who lives in a swamp, and when all fairy tale creatures invade his swamp, he wants to get rid of them. So he sets off to speak with Lord Farquaad, and he makes a deal with Shrek that if he rescues Princess Fiona from her castle and brings her back, then he will remove all the fairy tale creatures from his land. This isn't a very long or complex movie, but it still manages to be entertaining and well made the whole time. The world they build is pretty small for this first one, but the places they have are very well done and memorable. From Shrek's iconic muddy swamp to the town of Duloc and the incredible castle surrounded by lava, this movie has a surprising amount of action for a fairy tale based movie. They do a good job with it as well. It's not just simple jumps and swings of a sword, like, they actually have very well in depth motions. Like, there's a wrestling pit fight, they take on a dragon, and Fiona even takes down Robin Hood and his merry men single handedly. The characters they focus on are, of course, Shrek, Donkey, Fiona, and Lord Farquaad. There's a few others like Pinocchio, Gingy, and the dragon from the castle, but they don't have a huge presence. Shrek is by far my favorite character and probably the best part.
What are you doing in my swamp?
From the first scene before the pillagers even try and attack him, he's enjoyable. He's just a green ogre living his life and loves his peace and quiet. He meets Donkey early on and ends up bringing him along for the rest of the movie. While he likes keeping everyone out of his swamp, he doesn't necessarily hate everyone. He's just always looked at as a big scary green ogre, and people seem to judge him before they even get to know him. Which I think is a great lesson to teach, and it's well done in this movie.
Who you trying to keep out? Just tell me that, Shrek. Who?
Everyone, okay? People take one look at me and go, ah, help, run! A big, stupid, ugly ogre. They judge me before they even know me. That's why I'm better off alone.
You know what? When we met, I didn't think you was just a big, stupid, ugly ogre.
Yeah, I know.
Now, Donkey is very expressive and energetic with his personality. He annoys Shrek quite a bit throughout the movie, but Shrek eventually warms up to him. He's kind of funny and entertaining whenever he's on screen, which helps the movie not get too boring. He honestly even doesn't mind how Shrek is when they first meet, which Shrek doesn't experience much since most people are naturally scared of him. Donkey is a bit of that animal side character, but he does try and be a good friend to Shrek, even though Shrek doesn't always like him. Now, by the time they reach the castle, this is when we get introduced to Fiona. When we meet Fiona, she's been locked in the tower for years and is eager to meet her Prince Charming and have her curse broken. Her curse is that every sunset, she turns into an ogre until morning. While the princess waiting for Prince Charming is a very cliché fairy tale trope, they take a very unique approach with it.
Going? The exit's over there.
Well, I have to save my ass.
What kind of knight are you?
One of a kind.
She's insecure and doesn't like herself when she's in her ogre form, and thinks that she's only beautiful when she's her true self. But by the end, when she falls in love with Shrek, she takes true love's form, which ends up being the ogre. She learns another valuable lesson of self-acceptance and to be comfortable with who she is, which is unexpectedly a lot more like Shrek than she thought. And the fact that she is similar to Shrek makes it kind of ironic that Shrek is actually her true love. Lord Farquaad is the antagonist and is a very short prince who is trying to get married to become king. He's very condescending to his kingdom and he's very defensive about his size, so the movie often makes jokes about that. He's also kind of creepy sometimes, and the creators made Shrek to kind of make fun of Disney and the fantasy tropes they make, so they actually made Lord Farquaad how they perceived the owner of Disney, which I did not know until recently.
Some of you may die, but it's a sacrifice I am willing to make.
Now, I don't have a lot of knowledge about Disney in the early 2000s, but I can definitely say for certain that Disney has made some movies that I definitely do not like. But that doesn't mean I hate Disney completely. I think they make a lot of great things between Pixar and Marvel, for the most part. The soundtrack is good and nostalgic, but the music they use in the movie really stands out, and each song fits so well with the tone of the scenes. The music selection is simple, but so much more effective than general movies. The songs are very much a musical expression of the scenes, in the sense that when Shrek fights off guards in the mud pit, they play Bad Reputation, and he doesn't care about his image or reputation when he does take these guys out left or right. Or during the montage of them going to the castle, they play I'm on my way, and they literally are on their way. And while the music is so on the nose with the titles to what's actually happening, it's somehow very well picked, and they really did a good job with it. As they continue traveling, we see Shrek and Fiona start to like each other more and more, and notice the little similarities they both have. And while it seems like Shrek and Fiona aren't going to end up together, these scenes are actually what make them fall in love with each other. When Shrek goes to confess his feelings, he overhears Fiona talking with Donkey, saying that a princess and ugly don't go together. This can get old when they put things in movies where the main character hears something out of context and it sounds like something negative about themselves, but I think it's a little bit more understandable in this movie since Shrek has shown he does tend to push people away. The next morning he brings Lord Farquaad and Shrek and Fiona part ways. This is the low point of the characters, and we get another perfect song choice of Hallelujah. The fades between Fiona and Shrek are pretty well done, and by the end, Shrek and Donkey even make up. They both head off to Julok on Dragon, and Shrek busts in and stops the wedding. Farquaad sees Fiona transform into the ogre and is disgusted, but thankfully the dragon busts in and just eats Lord Farquaad. Shrek and Fiona kiss, and she finally takes true love's form. She didn't expect to be turning into the ogre form, but to Shrek, she was perfect as she is. So while this movie does make fun of all the fairy tale movies, ironically, it was a fairy tale movie all along. Except this one is much better than others, mostly because of the banger music, funny characters, and honestly the lessons we learned from Shrek and Fiona. The other Disney movies are pretty shallow.
The Muffin Man?
A muffin man!
This film is also composed by Harry Gregson Williams and John Powell, whose name will appear quite often in future DreamWorks movies. And oddly enough, Mike Myers decided he wanted to re-record all of his lines with a Scottish accent just because he wanted to.
It's on my to-do list now.
And honestly, thankfully, unlike most modern movies, this film has
Layers! Onions have layers. Ogres have layers. Onions have layers. You get it. We both have layers.
Shrek is a movie that was completely unexpected and was a huge curveball in what current animated movies were doing at the time. But it more than paid off. Because guess what? I'm sitting here 20 years later still talking about it. And if you make a movie that has that much of an impact on pop culture, then you know you made something special.
I thought love was only true in fairy tales. And then I saw her face. I'm a believer.
I know I have liked and enjoyed this movie for so much of my life, and I don't know if it's nostalgia or not, but I'm going to give Shrek a confident 8 out of 10.
Really?
Really, really.
Well, that's going to go ahead and do it for my review of Shrek. I hope you guys all enjoyed, and if you did, feel free to like and subscribe and comment down below what you guys thought of this movie. I know I loved it. I hope a lot of you guys did, and hopefully you'll stay tuned for more movie reviews in the future. But until then, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later.